This video is brought to you by my Patreon producers. If you'd like to become a Patreon producer, you can find more at patreon.com/Mason Menninga. Okay, so you've read one Rob Bell book, so I guess that means you've deconstructed your faith. Now what do? It seems like everyone has a deconstruction podcast or TikTok these days, helping people leave evangelicalism. These people have some really helpful advice, but one thing that I rarely see mentioned that was helpful for me as I left evangelicalism is actually studying theology. I don't want you to think of me as some deconstruction leader, because I'm not, but I do think studying theology can be really beneficial as you deconstruct or leave evangelicalism. I'm Mason Menninga, and today I'll be talking about why you need to learn theology to deconstruct your faith. Before we jump in, be sure to like and subscribe and turn on notifications. And also let me know what you think about the video in the comments. So if you're like me and grew up evangelical when I did, you learned theology from people like John Piper, Francis Chan, and C.S. Lewis. You probably even went from reading Narnia to reading Mere Christianity so that you can destroy your theological enemies. If you went to Bible college, you may have even learned theology from Wayne Grudem. In fact, this generic-looking old white man has had the best-selling systematic theology book for a couple decades. Yes, this man who looks like he's a manager at Home Depot has the best-selling theology book for multiple decades. So for many deconstruction leaders, and maybe even for yourself, I understand why you may avoid theology altogether when you deconstruct or leave evangelicalism. Because all of the theology you were exposed to growing up was bullshit, like Wayne Grudem, John Piper, and the other white ghouls of Calvinism. For many of you, theology might be traumatizing, and if it does truly traumatize you, you obviously shouldn't study it until you have worked through that with a professional. So instead of learning other theology, many deconstruction leaders simply reject the harmful theology of evangelicalism, but refuse to learn other theology outside of evangelicalism. While I think rejecting harmful theology is helpful for those who leave evangelicalism, for those of you who aren't immediately triggered by theology, then here are 3 reasons why you should study theology to help deconstruct your faith. The first reason to study theology if you're deconstructing, and honestly, it's probably the best reason, is that you'll begin to learn that there isn't one way to understand Christianity. If you aren't already annoyed with me, you can check out the video I did about how there isn't just one Christianity, but many Christianities. For many of you who grew up evangelical, we were taught there is only one way to understand the Christian faith. And because of that, maybe outside of the annoying debates between predestination and free will, there was just simply one way to understand Christian theology. But if you begin to learn about theology outside of evangelicalism, you'll quickly begin to realize there is so much amazing theology in just the Christian tradition itself. In fact, you'll quickly begin to realize evangelical theology mostly originated at least 1700 years after Christianity began. So that means there is about 1700 years of Christian theology before evangelicalism. For example, you may think a theology like universal salvation was introduced by the heretic Rob Bell when he released Love Wins in 2011. But in fact, universal salvation has been a part of the Christian tradition for thousands of years, most notably by Origen of Alexandria. Another reason to study theology to help you deconstruct is that once you have learned that there isn't one way to understand Christianity, you'll also begin to learn there is also so much theology outside of Christianity. Growing up in evangelicalism, we often think that when people talk about God and the other things about theology, we just assume they're talking about the Christian God and Christian theology. Because of this, it may not be obvious to you, but Judaism, Buddhism, Islam, Wicca, and all other religions have their own theologians and theologies that they've constructed. There are even atheist theologians. There may not be any atheists in foxholes, but there are in seminaries. The reason why studying theology outside of the Christian tradition is so important as you deconstruct is that, in my experience, many people who leave evangelicalism are also very interested in other religious traditions outside of Christianity. I personally know people who have left evangelicalism who became Jewish and Buddhist and Wiccan, and certainly many others become non-religious as well. And the beautiful thing about learning other theologies as you deconstruct is that you begin to learn theology from these other traditions, and you may find some of these traditions are actually what you believe about the divine and the world. And who knows, you may even want to become part of one of those other religions someday, including Satanism. The last reason to study theology to help you deconstruct is similar to the last one, but it is to help you form your own theology. Growing up in evangelicalism often means you have to believe certain things without truly getting any input as to what you actually believe. But it is essential that you begin to form your own theology as you deconstruct, because everyone is a theologian, and I truly believe that. And the best thing about you being a theologian is you probably didn't get a PhD in theology to basically become a barista. It doesn't matter if you stay Christian, convert to another religion, or leave religion altogether. I know you believe certain things about God and the world, just like everyone else. So regardless if you believe God is real or not, he's not, by the way. Regardless if you believe that there is an afterlife or not, there isn't, by the way. You are a theologian who asks the big questions in life, and studying what other people have thought about these questions is important as you deconstruct and leave evangelicalism. So there you have it. 3 reasons why you should still learn theology as you deconstruct your faith. By continuing to learn theology as you deconstruct, you will learn there isn't one way to understand Christianity. You'll learn the theologies of other religions and traditions. And because everyone is a theologian, including yourself, you'll realize you should learn theology to form your own theology. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and also tell me what you thought about it in the comments. If you'd like to support more of my work, check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Mason Menega. Also check out my podcast, A People's Theology, wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, to be in your body is to be in God.